right, welcome to the 2020 edition of Ripple Live. You're here with Steve and Mark, and I'm here in Arizona. And Mark is, well, he's not in his studio right now because PG&E turned off his power, and he's in a little.
Yes.
Yeah,
I am
so he's
once again without power. And longtime watchers of the show will remember our very first episode. This is episode 21, but our first episode, it was in the same situation and in the same spot. PG shuts our power off in the summertime for fire danger and in the winter to do repair work. So here I am at Starbucks.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, check to make sure you're not having something playing on YouTube or whatever. So what we're going to do is when Mark demos, he's going to switch to his earbuds. It's pretty noisy in that environment, so we apologize.
Sorry. I had YouTube was automatically playing a commercial for on our show.
Don't give a what the heck is that? All right. So we're cool. So we're going to make the best of it. So Mark has pretty good bandwidth where he's at, and I have good bandwidth, and we're going to be moving forward with the show. So Mark's been working on. Well, actually, before we get into the meat of the show, we'll talk a little bit about comments in the chat window here. That we do have a chat window, and this is how we interact with you live. You post your questions, and we do our best to get to them. And usually, it's we just go through them in order. And if you want to, you can click the little $sign if you want to do a super chat, and you can donate a nominal amount, whatever helps show, and then that will put you at the top of the queue, and we'll answer that question first. So I'm looking here at the chat window. We have people from all over joining us, and so thank you for joining. So, Mark, we're going to look. Mark's been working on a new tutorial, and it's really based on a series of videos that he produced over the past few weeks. Let me just jump over to YouTube. Actually, I don't want to jump over to YouTube just yet, but Mark did a series of tutorials showing how you could take a photo and then break it apart and then animate it in 3D space using motion, and also using a third-party plugin from Motion VFX called Puppet. So it allows you can work in 3D space and then animate those your subjects. And he's been working on this really amazing tutorial that walks you through the steps, not only how to work with a photo in motion, but specifically how to use Pixelmator or any image editing application and break that image apart, and so that you could separate it in layers. That's one of the things that we haven't done, is a full tutorial on like how do you actually approach taking a photo and breaking it into layers. What's the best way to do that? And he'll address that in the tutorial that we're actually releasing next week. So what we're going to do, and the reason Mark's not talking right now is he is in Starbucks, and it's a little bit noisy. So, hey, Mark, maybe you could just talk, just so we can hear, maybe talk about your computer, your tutorial a little bit.
Sure. So what I'll also do is I'm going to switch from my MacBook Pro microphone, which is running right now, so it's probably pretty noisy, but check this out. I'm going to switch to my AirPods Pro. I'm on my AirPods, and the audio should be much better. The reason I'm staying on them the whole time is when I switch to these is I really can't hear Steve very well, so I'm going to switch back and forth a little bit. Anyway, you guys probably saw we released a MacBreak Studio with George Edmondson a couple of weeks ago, who's doing some amazing work with Puppet and Motion to animate some photos for a documentary. So I wanted to take that a step further and really do a detailed tutorial that explains, but within 1 hour. So the whole thing is 1 hour, explains exactly how you animate photos in motion and why you'd want to use motion and why you might want to use Pixelmator to do that. Because two very inexpensive apps let you do something pretty impressive with photos and make them come to life. And Steve's going to actually, because I'm in Starbucks and all my assets are on my RAID at home where we have no power, there's another repair going on. Steve's going to actually show a little bit of what goes on in that tutorial, and then I'm going to give you guys a tip from out of that tutorial here today. So I'm going to switch. I'm going to go ahead and mute my audio for this next piece.
All right. So those Airbud Pros, those are amazing. The noise canceling feature. I mean, they're pricey little things. I bought a pair for my wife over the holidays. She loves them, and I'm really impressed. I mean, he's in a really noisy environment right now, and it's pretty much canceling out all that din, and so pretty impressive. So nice commercial there for Apple and their AirPod Pro that Mark will be presenting from. So as Mark mentioned, he teed it off to me. I want to show you just a little bit about what's in this tutorial because it's pretty cool, and then we'll get to your questions. I know we have a lot there. Philip McDonald, thank you so much for your super chat. No, Philip, you're the one that's amazing. You're amazing. So anyway, thank you. So anyway, let me show you. I'm going to switch over to my screen here. I'm just going to give you a little preview of what is in Mark's tutorial. I'm going to go ahead and play this, just maybe 30, 40 seconds from it. Here we go. I can't hear.
Oh, it's...
We are. We might be experiencing some technical difficulties. Mark, were you able to hear that?
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I didn't hear the audio there.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. So this is. There's a lot of moving parts here. I mean, you're in Starbucks. We're running this through OBS remotely through Skype. We have audio, and it's just like, poor Travis back here. His head's going. We're trying to make all this happen remotely. So anyway, thank you for your patience. But anyway.
Try playing it.
Travis wants me to try playing it one more time. Here, let me try this. All right, forget that. So we tried, no audio, apologize. So anyway, but I can show you something that's in this tutorial that when I saw it, I was like, this is so freaking cool. Let me jump over to a chapter marker here. I'm going to jump here. So one of the things that Mark does in this tutorial, he takes a still photo, and I don't know if you can see it here, but basically it's a still photo of a hallway. And what he does, I'm going to go ahead and just play this. He'll take a still photo, and he takes it and he breaks it apart and moves it in motion, makes essentially a 3D cube out of the different sides of the photo. And so what he's doing in motion is he's orbiting the camera around what pretty much is a flat photo that's been cut apart and sent into 3D space. And then just so you can kind of see how awesome this is, he put a 3D title in the middle of it. So then you can then push through the title through the hallway. And again, this is a still photo, and he made it seem like you're in an actual 3D environment. So I had to show you that because it's just so amazing, and it's part of his tutorial that will be I'll be coming out next week. So thank you. So anyway, so Mark wants to show you a little bit of a tip from that tutorial. I think he's going to be working in Pixelmator, so he can kind of show you. In the meantime, I'll be kind of gathering up your questions below, and then when we get back, we'll start going through them. Sound good? All right. It's all yours, Mark.
Okay, great. Thanks, Steve. So I've unmuted, and I need to switch to my other microphone here. And I made so to my...
A little bit better. There we go. So what I want to show you guys today is a little tip on making selections. So being able to do this animation in motion where you take a photograph and basically put it in 3D space and create animation, make it very dynamic, all depends on your prep work. It's a lot like painting, where the work in painting is all the prep work of all the patching and sanding, and that's really the work you do in an image editing application. I'm in Pixelmator here, and you may wonder, like, why Pixelmator?
He needs to share his screen.
Mark, you need to share your screen. Share your screen.
Pixelmator is $30. Actually, Pixelmator Classic is $30, which is the version I have.
Mark,
since they've come out with a Pixelmator
Mark,
Pro version.
Mark, you need to share your screen.
1 second. Can you hear me okay, Steve?
Yeah. Can you share your screen? Hey, Mark, share your screen. You got to share your screen, buddy.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Oh my God. Okay. There we go. Sharing the screen.
And now we're not hearing you. Oh my gosh. This is fun.
just I've totally lost audio from him.
All right. Let's come back and just answer some questions.
Okay.
All right.
To you.
All right. Back to me. All right. So we're experiencing some difficulties. He's trying to demo, but we're not hearing his audio right now. So what I'm going to do is just start going through the questions. Again, I apologize. This is very, very challenging trying to do a show when he's in Starbucks and we got, anyway, don't want to go through that again. So let's start here at the top and go through some of your questions. So looking at the top here.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can. So we weren't getting any audio from your demo at all. There's no audio.
I can't hear you at all. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Now I can hear you.
Yeah, we weren't getting any audio from your demo at all. No audio
Not getting
at all.
any audio.
All right, so let's go through here and look at some of the questions here, because that's really what the show is about. And apologize for the technical. I'll have another tip later.
I can't hear you at all.
Okay. I can't even hear myself sometimes.
Steve, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I don't hear you at all.
All right, so I don't know how we're going to continue doing the show like this. We're going to try it for another 4 or 5 minutes, and if we not, we're just going to bag it here. I don't want to waste you guys' time out there, but we are really experiencing a lot of problems right now. We got up pretty early. We started testing this an hour before. We didn't even know we were going to be doing it remotely until PG&E turned off the power at his house. So now Mark's not hearing me. We can't get audio from his computer. And it's funny because all of this stuff worked before the show. We tested everything, and you know how it goes. The best laid plans of mice and men, and there we go. So I don't know what to do, Mark. You can't hear me, and Travis is trying. We're getting a signal, so I don't know what to say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start looking. I'll just go ahead and take over the show at this point, Mark. All right, so maybe just have him restart his computer, just text him or something. All right, so let's look here. There was one question from Prezimo Jozinaki. So, hello, when will Final Cut 10 be able to read BRAW? That's not an Apple issue.
I can hear you now.
Oh, yay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
can you hear me? Was I able to share my screen or anything? Okay. Sharing screen wouldn't work?
Well, we could see it, but we couldn't hear any audio. From him. There was no audio coming out.
Well, yeah, the reason is it automatically switched off of my AirPods.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to try it again. I was just going to answer some questions here at this point.
Okay, go ahead. And then answer some questions and let's try again.
All right. So the question about was BRAW. This subject keeps coming up over and over again. When will Final Cut support BRAW? I don't know. Apple doesn't tell us. That stuff is, they're notoriously secretive about everything they do. I know a lot of you use Blackmagic cameras, and we agree that should be part of Apple. But I can tell you that it's not on Apple's end. Apple will support, publicly they've said they support every codec that, they can support pretty much whatever. So it doesn't seem to be, it just seems to be on Blackmagic side right now. But again, I don't know for sure, but don't have any direct information about that. Okay. So let's going through here. So the photo diver asks, with the RT Flyer plugin, I think that's said, my 4K map loses resolution when the transition is applied. By itself on the timeline, it's fine.
I talked.
Yeah.
Do you have an answer for that? Because I was going to address that.
No, go ahead and you address it. You made the plugin.
Yeah, I was going to say, there shouldn't be any loss of resolution. I asked him to send me the file. We've already been talking on support, so I'd rather just follow up on support and see. But you should be able to add a map of any resolution up to what your graphics card will support, and that should work okay.
All right. Hi, Debbie. Hi, Anders. Good to see you again. Big Water, good to see you. All right, so Big Water's asking about session on compressor. That's a really good one. In fact, I have a tip on compressor later, but we are working on a full compressor tutorial with, I brought this up, I think 2 Ripple Lives back that, would you guys be interested in seeing kind of a compression tutorial where we cover some of our secret recipes for compression and know how to cover the compressor, how to work with it efficiently? And a lot of you are like, yes, I want that tutorial. And we have been working on it, and it should be, well, we're finishing it up, so we'll finish up next week. So week after, hopefully, we will have our compression secrets, whatever. We haven't come up with a name yet, but we're definitely working on that. All right. Hello from Helinsky, Jerry, Simone, Santa Barbara, and let's keep going through here. Let's see. Good. Tom says he can hear us both. All right.
Steve, I could try it. There's another one here I could try to address.
Okay, ahead.
About the curves. So Craig Shields said, can you demo how curve sets in motion work? So I'll just talk through it for a minute, because I'll tell you, Craig, I never use them, but the basic idea is that curve sets allow you to show specific keyframe curves in the keyframe editor at the same time. So let's say you want to see just position and scale and rotation. You can build a curve set that shows just those curves and work with them in relation to each other. Usually you can just use the animated pop-up menu to see everything you've animated, and it works fine. So personally, I have found really very little use for that feature, but it does allow you to show specific curves in relation to each other as you're working on the keyframe interpolation and adjustment and timing of keyframes.
I love it. Jacob Colgrove, stinking PG&E. Oh, the technical. Yeah, it's so funny how much we rely on power, Anyway. Okay. So I'm going back through any questions here, any specific from the app. Mark, maybe you can answer. Dan McComb asked about, is there any ways to use ACES color management within FCP 10? Have you ever worked with the ACES color management, Mark?
That's easy. The answer is no. ACES you can use in DaVinci Resolve, but not in Final Cut at this point.
Right. So I'm jumping back up to Dan McCone again. I'm going backwards. When I import Canon RAW light footage from the new C100 Mark II in 5.9K resolution, I get pink bars across the lower half of the image. Is this resolution not supported yet? Technically it should be. Final Cut Pro 10 supports up to 8K resolutions. The one way to find out is, Apple usually tests every camera. this camera is a pretty new camera on the market, and it's possible that the issues you're seeing are related to, how that particular file is being decoded. But just in terms of, pixel count, there's no reason why it shouldn't. 5.9K isn't really that odd. I have a lot of 360 footage that's 5.2K or 5.7K, and it works just fine. So I don't think it's that. I think it might be how it's being decoded by Final Cut, and there might be I've discovered that the Canon cameras require a plugin. We work with the C200, and you have to use a Canon plugin to decode that raw material in Final Cut Pro. There might need to be something on Canon's end that needs to be updated. So I know that's probably not what you want to hear, but I think it's probably related to that. I'm just surmising here. All right, cool. Looking down here. Okay, so Gabriel. Hey, Gabriel, how you doing? Gabriel Spalding's he's one of the good guys here in the Final Cut Pro group and spend a lot of time there. He mentions that that you can use ACES in the Color Finale. I think he meant Color Finale 2 plugin. there's an Aces color mode. So apparently you can work with Aces in Final Cut, but just not directly with the tools built in Final Cut. So thanks, Gabriel. Really appreciate that. All right. Anyway, I do want to thank everyone for being patient with us as we're trying to work out all these things, and you just gotta roll with it. We're just trying to do the best we can.
Can I try to do my tip and see if it works?
Well, do you want to try our tip? Try your tip one more time. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
So
gonna
what I'm
gonna try it right now. We're gonna try it right now.
Okay, so Steve, when I switch microphones, will you just text right in the text? I won't be able to hear you, so right in the chat window, if you can hear me and see my screen, okay, all right?
Got it. All right.
All right, so actually, I'm already sharing my screen, so
We can see the screen.
you can see the screen, okay, and
Yeah.
I'm going to switch.
So now the audio should
Yes.
be better.
Yes. We can hear you.
Audio's better? Okay,
Yes.
great. So I am going, great. So here we go. So this is related to the prep work for setting up your photos for animating them in motion. And so in order to create this great animation in motion with working in 3D space and being able to add mPuppet and adding moves and everything requires prep work in an image editing application, much like painting requires patching and sanding before you do the fun work of the painting. And I'm using Pixelmator here. You can use any image editing application. Photoshop is the big 800-pound gorilla that does everything, but it's also $10 or $20 a month depending on kind of what package you have. Pixelmator Classic, which I'm using here, is $30 one-time fee, where they've introduced a new Pixelmator Pro at $40. There's also Affinity Photo, which is really great, but I think it's $40. So anywhere, but you can do everything you need here in Pixelmator. So that's the first thing, is why am I using Pixelmator? The second thing is there's two things you need to do. You need to select your foreground elements, and then you need to fill in the holes in the background. And usually you might be used to using a pen tool or a lasso tool like this. So you might, zoom in close and start, maybe even zoom a little closer and start using the lasso tool to click around an object. And this is very accurate, but man, oh man, it can take a long time to separate something out. So instead, what I recommend in Pixelmator is there's this thing called a quick selection tool. And it does a pretty amazing job of creating a selection just by dragging. As you can see, you can use the bracket keys just like in Photoshop to adjust the size of the, what it's selecting. But you can see how quickly I'm able to, I'm making an inverse selection, obviously, and I'm adding the shift key to make these other little selections. And then you can always zoom in close and fix anything where if it didn't make quite a good selection. So for instance, the shoulder here, I can switch to the lasso tool, press minus to subtract from the selection and say, yeah, I don't want this shoulder included in this selection here. There. So you can go through and pretty quickly fix up selection. You can also press the Q key to go into quick mask mode to see exactly what's selected, and then go in from there and continue to refine your selection. I'll hold the shift key and hit a plus there. So that's the first tip, is instead of just using that lasso tool, you can use this quick selection tool in combination with quick mask mode and the lasso tool to make a good selection. But then you end up with holes, and you need to fill those holes in if you have a clean background plate. And this is a really cool tool. So first of all, I'm gonna duplicate this layer so we don't mess up our original background. I'll turn that one off. So instead of trying to fill the holes with maybe the clone stamp tool, it's the same thing in Photoshop right here, clone stamp tool, where you can clone pixels. So you can sample pixels, and then you can start painting over and filling them out. My opacity isn't set all the way up here. I'll set it all the way up. You can start painting out those pixels. And that's fine, but check this out. I really want you to check this out. This is called the repair tool. It's kind of like the healing brush tool in Photoshop. If I want to get rid of something, I can adjust this, and maybe I'll just drag a line down this here, and boom, it's gone. It fills in the background for you. It does the cloning for you, okay? And you might say, okay, well, that's pretty cool, but that was a fairly simple thing to fill in. Well, let's zoom in a little bit here and go back and try it on this guy. And all I'm doing is sort of hovering him up like this. Just Get him nice and covered up. And I'm keeping the mouse held down the whole time. Release the mouse. I miss a little piece there, and he's gone. So, you know, the background sometimes needs some additional cloning work, but it's a great first pass. And usually you don't need the background to be perfect because it's going to be, you're only revealing a little bit of it when you do some parallax moves in motion. But you can continue to use this tool even after that's gone, just to kind of clean things up a little more or switch between it and the clone stamp tool. I go in more detail on how to do this in the tutorial, because this prep work is key to really pulling off the look when you're done. But you can see how quick and easy that is. So that's my basic tip, is speeding up the process of making selections and creating a clean background plate in any image editing app, but in this case, in the $30 Pixelmator app. And that's my tip.
Awesome. Okay, so back to some questions here. All right. So I'm gonna go jump back up in the list. All right. So let's see. Looks like Simo's asking. Been trying to make a gig animated image with sound using compressor. Gig animated image. Oh, it's sound. I'm not sure what you mean.
Image sequence?
An image sequence? Is that what you mean? Make an image sequence. Anyway, maybe you can give me a little bit more. I'm trying to understand what you're asking here. Vijay asks, is there any way we can export multiple clips from the same timeline, but with 0 time code for each clip? The answer is no, not in Final Cut. You can export multiple clips from the browser, the media browser, but once the clips are in the timeline, you can't export individual clips. Now, I've talked about Resolve quite a bit on the show. Both Mark and I use Resolve, and if you save an XML file from Resolve, save an XML file in Final Cut of your clips, then you can open those clips in Resolve and then use Resolve's media page to spit out individual clips that will have 0 starting time code. And again, I'm not going to cover that here because I've covered that in previous Mac breaks, but it can be done. It just can't be done directly within Final Cut. All right.
Hey Steve.
Yeah.
Simo's question about compressor and animated image. He wants to make an animated GIF. He wants to make a GIF. And
GIF.
I don't think you can do that with compressor. Like, I just made one yesterday, but I used Giphy, the website
Giphy.
where you
Yeah.
So you create a video, you upload it, and then Giphy will pump it out for you.
Yeah. Oh, you know what, James? James Wells. James, this is funny because we were talking about our name for our compressor. I love this. Crushing it with compressor. That's kind of a fun name. What do you think? You like that, Travis?
Sounds good.
All right. So anyway, thank you, James. All right. So Giphy. Yeah, I think Giphy's pretty much a standard for creating GIFs, correct? All right. So Bajarska Pazda, I have probably pronounced it, probably just butchered your name. Please forgive me. Why Final Cut Pro does not use significant GPU/CPU resources when creating a proxy? Can you force acceleration of proxy creation? My Vega 64 is bored while creating proxy files. Mark, what do you think?
Sorry, I was trying to find my GIF because it's a really cool GIF. It's an animated photo that's right in line with what we're talking about.
Right.
So I'm seeing a lot of these questions of people who seem to be staring at their activity monitors and their cores for their graphics card and their CPU and complaining like, why isn't my computer using all its resources to do rendering or to do proxy creation or to do playback or whatever. You can't, I guess the main thing is you can't do anything about it. You can't say, hey, allocate more resources to the graphics card. You can choose which graphics card is being used. Final Cut allows you in its preferences to choose what graphic card is being used, but Final Cut determines how it allocates resources between the graphics card and the CPU, and you can't do anything about it. And I just wouldn't worry about it. I mean, it's doing what it can in the best way that it can. And I get it. You think like, hey, there's a lot of headroom not being used, but it should be doing it in the best way that it possibly can. Some tasks require the GPU versus the CPU, and you're just not going to see the CPU doing much because it's a GPU-oriented task to do compositing or do rendering, and you're not going to see much going on with the CPU. just the way it works. My opinion, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So a little clarification. Shane was saying back to that compressor question. You're right, Shane. You could set in and out points on the timeline and send a compressor, but if you have 50, 100 clips in a timeline, that's really a lot of clicking. And but you're right. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, so Four Corners video, thank you for the super chat. Let's look at your question here, because I mentioned earlier, if you want to make sure that your question gets answered, then use the super chat, and that puts the question at the top of the priority queue. So thank you for that. A .mov file from a Pan CX350. Well, I'll be the first to admit that I don't really know what that is. So I'm assuming it's a camera. It says opens fine in the Final Cut timeline, but I get an error message when trying to open that same file with a QuickTime as standalone. I guess the question is what codec is that particular file in? It might be a problem that the Finder can't deal with that codec, and possibly it's an older 8-bit one. I don't know. I'm not
Or newer.
camera. Yeah, or
QuickTime
newer.
can't open lots of files. There's a lot of files now that QuickTime just can't open.
Yeah.
The video files and still files. I mean, it just can't. QuickTime, that's going away. So I would just use Final Cut to be able to preview it, or you can look at other apps. Sometimes you can VLC, you can open things in VLC, usually that it won't open somewhere else. But there's a lot of things that QuickTime can't open anymore.
Well, and Mark, that's a really good point. People realize that Final Cut was really built as a can opener in a lot of ways, and the reason it's a can opener is because Final Cut is this what's called the Pro Video, the plugin. That when you download Final Cut, it has to install this Pro Video format into Final Cut, and that is what's essentially doing a lot of the decoding in the background. So, for example, a lot of times certain MXF files you can't open, but you bring it into Final Cut and you open it because the Pro Video format architecture is handling that. So Mark's absolutely right. QuickTime is not going to open everything, and a lot of times you can bring in a Final Cut and it will, for the reasons I just mentioned. Okay.
Hey, can I screen share real quick? I just want to show that GIF since we're talking about GIFs. So I don't know if you can see it here.
Yeah,
can you see that?
Yeah, we can
so
see that.
This is a photo. It's a still photo, but notice that the sea, looks the bottom of it. The whole ocean and dock have been made into a floor, and that's some 3D text in there, and the whole background behind the guy doing the headstand's been replaced. So this is the same kind of technique discussed in the tutorial, except I'm not animating anything with MPuppet here, but just made a little GIF out of it. So that's all.
Right. So I keep going back to this, can compressor export? I keep getting clarifications from other folks that are chiming in. Tom Wolski. Okay, so Tom brings up a really good point that I forgot about. It's not the cleanest way to do it, but it can be done. So let's say you got a timeline of 50 clips and you want to export each of those out. You can then, what's he said, is set the browser to show used clips in the timeline, used clips, and then you'll see just the used clips. Those are clips that have a little orange bar, and then you'll be able to select those used clips and then export them out. So if you were going to do it, that's a pretty good idea. I would say that's a good idea. So it's not the cleanest way.
You can command select them and send them all the compressor at the same time.
Yeah. So there's a way to do it. I just, all these to me, they're just stupid workarounds, honestly. I think you should be able to export all the clips from the timeline and have them out as individual files. The fact that we're, having to do all this is in my opinion, just ridiculous. So yeah, you can do it, but it's really funny because for an app that's as intuitive as Final Cut, to be able to okay, now I got to use clips and then select those and then output, it's kind of dumb. It just is. We should be able to export and just out straight away from the timeline. Anyway, so any questions on that camera? People are mentioning that it is a Panasonic camera. So, so yeah. So let's look at the questions. There was a couple questions earlier I wanted to get Mark. There was one about this. Escape asked about should he be working in BT 2020 or Rec 709. I scroll up. Escape Outdoors asked that. Is there any reason
Yeah.
to use? Yeah, that's a good question.
In general, you're going to work in Rec 709. I mean, the only time you're working in Rec 2020 is if you're doing basically HDR work where you've got an HDR deliverable. So it's a combination of Rec 2020 and the higher brightness values. But it really, if you're going to work in Rec 2020, you need a monitor that you can monitor in Rec 2020 for both the expanded color and expanded brightness range. And I know a bunch of people are shooting ELG now because you can do it, which is a hybrid log gamma for Rec 2020. But honestly, unless you're able to monitor correctly, work in Rec 709. Rec 709 is a broadcast standard. It's a standard for the web. It's the best place to be working unless you are specifically delivering, Netflix or Apple or for some broadcast show that's going to require an HDR deliverable.
Now, I'm going to run something by you, Mark, because this is an interesting discussion. One of the things that's popular right now is people are using the Ninja 5, the DVR, the recorder, and they're coming out HDMI, and they're coming out of their Nikon Z6 and Nikon Z7, and they're recording into Apple ProRes RAW right into those devices. So people that have DSLRs or can now get ProRes RAW into Final Cut. And one of the things we've noticed, because I've been working with some people on it, is that if you could bring in that raw material, but if you're working in a 709 timeline, it pretty much clips the highlights off with that Apple ProRes RAW. And so one way around that, of course, is to bring that B-RAW. Excuse me, I can't B-RAW, I keep Blackmagic RAW. I meant ProRes RAW, for crying out loud. You know what's so great about standards? There's so many of them. Anyway, so you work in a Rec 2020 time, you bring the Apple ProRes RAW in there, and now you have all of the headroom, and then you can see, and you can then work with all that extra headroom that you're not going to be able to see if you put in a Rec 709 timeline. So Mark, throwing it back to you, I mean, would it not make sense to just to retrieve the highlights in the 2020 and then move because you're right, you can't see it, but then move that clip once you've retrieved the highlights, move it into a 709 timeline? I'm just asking.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you should, if you're not able to retrieve those highlights that were shot in RAW in Rec 709, then it was overexposed or some other problem going on.
Well, no, I verified it. They're clipped, and it may be a thing with that camera, but if you right when you go into the 2020, there's all that. It's all there. It's just there. So
are you applying the thing is, if you apply a LUT as a camera LUT in Rec 709, that camera LUT is being applied at the first thing in the chain. Right. And if that LUT clips those highlights, then they may not be retrievable. So I would not apply the LUT there, not apply a LUT at all, or do your grading and apply a LUT as a creative LUT as an effect rather than as a camera LUT in the inspector. But if it's coming in RAW and you're saying the RAW clip without a LUT applied is showing clipped highlights, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, clipped highlights.
Yeah, that I don't know why there's something else wrong going on there.
Yeah, it's weird because normally with RAW you have to apply what's called a conversion LUT just to get it, just to take that raw data and essentially
make it visible.
Debayer
it. Debayer it, right.
So it has to be
Sounds like there's something wrong with those debayer settings.
Right. So what people are finding, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because there's a lot of people going to be shooting with that Ninja 5, and they're going to bring it the Apple ProRes RAW, like what the heck's going on? Because I can tell you for certain that Apple does not have a LUT that'll take that'll debayer it and put it into a workable space. There's some workarounds. You actually have to apply some different LUTs to get it to work. It can be done. I've seen a lot of there's a lot of steps on the web that says just do this. You can do that, but it's not a clean workflow. And I just because this is so new now with the Ninja 5 and Apple ProRes RAW, so we're still kind of figuring that. I think maybe in the show I should probably get some clips that are Apple ProRes, where they're shot on like a Nikon Z6 or something, bring it in just so we can work with it, because these questions are coming. They will, because it's a very popular way to get 10-bit into your system right off a DSLR.
Hey, Steve, there's a question about if you from Gabriel Spalding. No, sorry, from Cedric Beasley. Do you guys have a good tutorial on cleaning up audio, removing noise, making sure audio levels are the same for Final Cut Pro?
Well, yes, we do. There's actually 2 tutorials that I would recommend. One is, let's see here. If you're depends what you mean by cleaning up, and that's a large subject. If you go over to let's see, let me go to Final Cut. If you're
Gabriel actually answered the question: mixing strategies and working with audio effects and sound editing. He mentioned 3 of the tutorials.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. Wow, thanks, Gabriel. But sound editing in Final Cut Pro, we go through the whole workflow of making sure you're getting your dialogue levels to match across the tracks. Very, very important. And then Travis created one on like how to use all the plugins to clean up your audio as well. So if I go down to let's see, Final Cut, these short subject tutorials, Travis did a really great tutorial called working with audio effects in Final Cut. Basically goes through all the key effects that you would work with in Final Cut, and compressors, limiters, noise gates, all kinds of great stuff in here that you want to check out. So definitely those 2 for sure. All right. By the way, let's see any questions, and because we're getting towards the end, let's before I answer a few more questions, I should take a little bit of a break here and talk about Vlog University for a moment. And Mark and I will be teaching next weekend in Los Angeles, and basically this is a program that is put on by Future Media Concepts, and it's hosted by YouTube celebrity iJustine, and she's going to be covering, how to market, how to keep an audience, all this. It's going to be some video, audio, business, everything related to making your channel better, getting more viewers, retention, that sort of thing. So there's just a lot of really great content for 2 days. In fact, if you want to check it out, it's vloguniversity.com. If you click on sessions, you can go through and see what's going to be covered in those 2 days. $300. We're going to be there. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because we are running a contest right now, and we still have time. If you want to enter to win a free pass, we're going to be giving away, I think we're going to give away a pass. So once you bring that up, we're going to bring it up. I'm going to bring up a little, they used to call it a Chiron. You remember the broadcast. But anyway, you see the text there. If you want to use that bit.ly link, you can then go and enter the contest in about, 10 minutes. We'll go back. We'll announce the winners, and maybe you'll see Mark and I in Los Angeles very soon. All right. So back to the questions. Let's see here.
Hey, right, Steve, can I address one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Steve, can I address one?
Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Yeah, you can. Yep.
Yes. Sure. So Kurt Bailey asked about, GN Twill said, I've been trying to tame a camera move in motion, having trouble. I've tried to frame behavior, and it seems to slide around. And I can show you a little bit. I got a demo I can show here if I share my screen in motion. So one thing I suggest, so here I have a motion project with a camera animation, and just to see what that camera is doing, if I go to the perspective view.
You need to share. You need to share your screen.
Oh, I did. I thought I did. Yeah. Oh, start. I didn't finish. I didn't share. Click the second button. God. So here I am in motion, and you see I've got a camera that's moving around to these different. Is it working?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I've got this camera moving around to these different objects. If you're having trouble, one thing I recommend with the framing behavior, if you can see in the inspector right here, this orientation parameter, you want to set this to orient to final. It's set to orient to current by default, and you generally don't get as nearly good a camera move as orient to final. So that may not be that your issue GN12, but make sure that's set to final, and that really should help. If you're still having other issues, it may be because your point of interest isn't right at the focal plane of the camera. Feel free to email us at support@rippletraining.com, and I'll try to help you a little bit more, because generally you should be able to get some really smooth camera movement by using the framing behavior. As you know, you can see in this one, the camera will move smoothly from one object to the next and stop smoothly. So hopefully that helps. We'll see. If not, please contact us.
Okay, so a couple more questions. I'm going back to the list, backing back up. Some again, I apologize if we miss one. There's a lot of text here, so if we missed it and you have to absolutely get it answered, use the super chat or just post it again, and hopefully we'll get to it. Okay, let's see here. Mark Azulino. Hopefully I pronounced that correct. Why does it seem that my videos are not as bright as Final Cut Pro 10 after exported? Do I need to brighten up video before exporting? I normally, I just export in a QuickTime. It looks kind of the same to me. I'd have to see maybe a side-by-side. You shouldn't be getting a differing brightness levels on export. But I do know that when we... Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's depending on if you're looking at the Finder, if you're looking at a browser, the same video will look different in different browsers on the same machine. And on different machines, I mean, there's so many variables on how that display has been calibrated, which browser you're using. There's, you can't know how that eventually is going to look. But it shouldn't look significantly.
Yeah, I mean, they should look the same, but also, like, what are your color sync settings for your monitor? What color sync are you using? Is it the display color sync? Is it some other color sync? So most of the colors on a Mac is handled by color sync. So, you can go into your monitor, your display prefs, and just, check out what those are. And you might want to make a custom display set, or maybe choose another one. But I think that's a lot, you can't really compare apples to apples because of the way, the Mac might be displaying, that gamma curve. So, I can tell you on my MacBook, 16-inch MacBook Pro, when I get out of Final Cut and using the default color sync settings, it looks pretty much identical. So, and this is a good time to bring up, we do have a blog and a support channel, Support at Ripple Training, and feel free to send a screenshot or what have you of things. If you're just stuck, we can try to get to you there, but you can put screenshots up there and we can try to help you out. All right. All right. Good. So.
Simo says you can use compressor to make a GIF.
Oh, you can? Really? All right. I've never.
I'm gonna have to try that. That's great. I've never done that. I'm gonna try that.
All right. Yeah, I've never used compressor to make a GIF, but that's why we have the show. Always learning stuff. All right, awesome. Six String Brian asked, does Final Cut now work with Blackmagic's eGPU? Mark, have you used the eGPU, the Blackmagic one?
Say it again.
Six String Brian's asking if the Blackmagic eGPU works with Final Cut.
Yeah, I'm not using it, so I can't address that.
Yeah,
and honestly, I don't know how much those, some people really love those things. I don't know how much they really pay for themselves. I mean, if they're going to speed up rendering and that time is really valuable to you, then they're maybe worthwhile.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Simo. So we'll play with GIFs. Okay, so
yeah,
Mark,
I found it.
Go ahead.
I found it. It's in compressor. I'll just share it real quick, just so other folks can see if they're interested in doing this. Start sharing. So here I am in compressor, and in my settings under the motion graphics category. Let me zoom in here. I don't have zooming set up on this new MacBook. Under motion graphics, there's animated image right here. So he's saying that is the GIF preset right there. So that's it.
All right.
I have to try it out.
I have to try it out. See, I'm always learning stuff. That's great. All right, so I'm looking here. Is there anything else that I want to show? So Debbie is asking, have you done a tutorial on different types of transitions, jump cut, L cut, cross cutting, match cut, montage? You know, that's actually really good. I think if I did one, I think that's an excellent suggestion. I think probably one of our free YouTube videos, just go through every one of them. I like that idea. I'm gonna put that in my queue list for doing in the future. Fantastic suggestion. Thank you, Debbie. We'll do it as a free one. All right. So hopefully I'm looking, hamster graphics. I like that handle there. Hamster graphics. Any news if HEVC 10-bit export is going to improve anytime soon? I work with HDR deliverables, and H.265 is very, very slow. And I have discovered that myself, that it's really slow to export. Anything I do with H.265, HEVC is very slow to export. I'd have to play with that a little bit more. But yeah, I agree with you. It's almost intolerable for longer projects. I typically stay with H.264 because it's still it's still a widely accepted standard on the web. Almost every browser, player, server supports H.264. I know that 2 years ago Apple was really touting H.265/HEVC as like the next big thing. I don't think it's taken off as well as they thought it was going to. It really is great. It does compress the file, and you get a really nice, very compact file, but it does take a long time, and I'm just not sure, what the immediate benefits are, except that you get a little bit smaller file size. But the wait time, it's not a trade-off that I like. So I don't have any. To answer your question, I don't know if they're working on improving it. They don't let us know, and Apple's secretive about that stuff. All right.
So Steve, I just made a GIF with working in compressor, out of compressor, and it works great. So thank you, Simo, for that.
Fantastic.
Really works
Fantastic.
great, and I'll be using that more. So that's really great. I'm going to make a preset to use it in Final Cut as well. So thank you, Simo. That's awesome.
That's awesome. Fantastic. All right, so what I want to do is let's switch over, and then we should have the winners for the Vlog University, and Travis is bringing them up right here. So, all right, you guys are ready? We're going to announce the winners for the people that won. You got a free pass to the 2-day Vlog University in Los Angeles. So, first one, ready? Here we go. John Manos, congratulations, you are a winner. George Pugh, congratulations, you're a winner. And Danielle in Toronto, you're a winner. And lastly, we have Alan Berry. So congratulations to you four. You now have passes to the Vlog University, and you will, if you're going to be there, I'm assuming you're going to be there, you signed up. So Mark and I will both be there, and you make sure you come up and say hi. You can take our classes, and there's a whole event night. Just come up and say hi, and it's going to be a great conference. So again, congratulations. That's awesome. All right. Hey, all the technical difficulties we experienced up front sort of became less painless as the hour went on. So anyway, so one last thing I want to cover before we sign off is when our next one is. Our next, oops. There. All right, here. So our next RippleLIVE is on February 21st. That's when we'll do the next one. And hopefully Mark will have power and we can do it from his studio and not have these excruciating problems. By the way, February 21st will be my birthday. So we'll be, that's why I can remember it. So we'll do one on my birthday on February 21st. All right, Mark, any last things you want to go over before we sign off here?
No, I think I've bothered you enough with my noisy background. I'm sure I've bothered all the people around me too, but thanks for bearing with us. And next month, hopefully we'll be back in our studios for doing this again.
Yeah. So again, I want everybody to have a great weekend. Go outside, get away from your computer. And I'm speaking to myself here. Go for a hike, go for a walk, do something else. And that's what I plan on doing this weekend. So hopefully you guys have a great one. And for those of you who won, congratulations. We'll see you next weekend in Los Angeles. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.